Hello to all my semi-attractive people out there. How you doing? It is Monday night, and we are here for a double dose of movie reviews. It's been a while since we've done two movies on this podcast. Not exactly by choice, just the fact that there hasn't really been anything out worthy of reviewing. But we do have a couple of films that have gotten a lot of heated debate, let's just say, over the last couple of days. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and introduce our group here tonight. Our regulars. Let's start with my right, all the way from Washington on the West Coast. Mr. Rob Motto, how you doing today?
Oh, pretty good, man. Titans won yesterday, so woo, 2-2. And the Raiders just got the first win yesterday, so that was impressive.
Yeah, that's great. Until I find out that next week's game is Monday night at Kansas City, so we'll be 1-4 by the time that week is over. Probably get destroyed next week. And then all the way in Texas, for some reason, a guy who is not a Cowboys fan, Mr. Rick Aragon. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I am the rare El Pasoan who does not care about the Cowboys. I know they're the big team here.
Yeah, you're not like a Texans fan, like maybe like an old school like Houston Oilers holdover or anything like that.
No. I guess the closest, if I were a fan, I'd end up being a Packer fan only because everyone I know seems to be a Packer fan.
That seems to be a very bandwagonish reason to become a Packers fan, but all to you. Someone who knows about suffering football franchises, our good friend Cold Classic Cage, who's in the chat with us tonight, and she is a Jets fan. The Jets did, in fact, win yesterday. I don't know how they pulled it off, but aren't they like 2-2 as well?
Yeah, because they beat Cleveland, I think. But yeah, Zach Wilson, it was his first start of the year because he got hurt in the preseason. He had that meniscus surgery, so it was his first game back, and he played pretty well. I mean, it's a start. We'll see where it goes from here, but it's a good start for that team.
It's the Jets, so I mean, you have to kind of like live with that reality that you can't expect too much from them. It's almost like the Browns. I mean, you expect them not to blow a 13-point lead in the last 2 minutes of a football game, but you remember they're the Browns; they do shit like that. Our good friend Osnot is in the chat, and not even 30 seconds into the show when we get comments like this from Duke Nukem, who said he would rather get high on LSD than to watch Bros. I heard another.
There's a mention of poppers. There was some poppers in Bros.
There was a mention of a lot of questionable things, which we'll talk about here in a second. Cassie says that Jets got no offensive line. It's like, yeah, they're the Jets. Like, what did you expect? It's like why do you have expectations? Hasn't it been like 55 years since they last won a Super Bowl? It's like I think we kind of know what the Jets are at this point. But hey, we're all here and we have survived the month of September, which is going to go down as one of the worst cinematic months in history, because apparently there was not a single movie the entire month of September that did $20 million worldwide, by the way, in its first weekend. Like, this is a pretty awful showing. Obviously, we're on the last week of a streak of 3 very, very bad weeks of films. We did The Woman King a few weeks ago. We did Don't Worry, Darling last week. And then we did, then we're doing Bros tonight. But then we also changed it up a little bit and added in Netflix film, which is, I think, Rob's most anticipated film of the year. We'll get to see whether that film lived up to expectations or not. But I say let's just go ahead and get the bad portion of the show out of the way. Let's start off with our review of the film Bros. Now, I want to play you guys a little TV spot here. It's only 30 seconds, so we shouldn't get copyright claimed or anything like that. But I just want to show you, this is one that they were running with about 2-3 weeks ago. And I just want you to just take note of the things that are being said in this trailer versus juxtaposed for what occurred today. Let's just put it that way. So here's a little TV spot for the movie Bros for you.
From CoverGirl.
Bros is the funniest movie of the year.
I had sex with that 65-year-old.
Jeez, he's ripped.
I know, it's like they injected steroids into Dumbledore.
Hilarious and undeniably charming. It's a new twist on the romantic comedy.
Do you guys remember Straight People?
Yeah, they had a nice run.
That must be seen in a theater with a rollicking full house.
And ends on something happy, like Lil Nas X working out with pink dumbbells.
I want to see that. Gay guys are my jam.
Awesome. Bros, rated R.
So there was a lot of things said in that little 30-second teaser you just saw right there that didn't exactly hold up very well with the reality of what exactly happened with this film. Now, let me just go ahead and say this right off the gate, because we're going to be pretty harsh on this film, and we already know the narrative that's going out there. So I'm not particularly going to sit here and just attack gay people or lesbian people or whatever the case may be, whatever part of the alphabet that you're in on this whole spectrum goes. Because I have to realize that even people who are who are part of this community, the gay community, lesbian community, they don't like Billy Eichner. And I think that's kind of the big. I think that's the kind of the elephant in the room that a lot of people are ignoring right now, is that they don't like this guy. They think he's an insufferable douche. His comments over the last 24 hours have kind of cemented that. Now, for the sake of this review, we're only going to be talking about specifically the controversy about the film itself. So we're going to label to the film. Tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast, we will talk about the box office numbers and everyone's reactions to it, but we're just going to stick with the movie here. Billy Eichner, over the last, I guess you could say 2 months, honestly, has been going on every show he possibly can to promote this film. And according to him and nobody else, this is the first gay rom-com by a major studio in 100 years. And he's been going with that narrative for months now, even though other LGBTQ curators have come out and say, well, what about our film? We just did one a couple years ago. No, that doesn't count because that's not a wide release. That's not a major studio. So he's been kind of like downplaying other people's shit in order to prop up this film. But he's been trying to get everyone to go out there and go see it. And he specifically has targeted straight people. He really wants straight people to go and see this movie. Now, if you want to, I guess, embrace a straight people and want them to come see your movie, maybe don't include lines in the film like, oh, straight people, they had a good run. That could make him go like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll just stay home and save $16. So there was a lot of mistakes you can label going into this film. I would say this. Billy Eichner is probably the worst possible poster child of any LGBTQ community movement you could possibly think of. I can think there's probably 1,000 other people you could have put in this position that would have done far better. Hell, his co-star, even though we're going to trash this film, his co-star, Luca McFarlane, it's far more likable than he is in pretty much every stretch of this movie. And you think to yourself, well, hell, if the film had focused on him, this might have actually been a good movie. But no, because we have to focus on the producer man and the guy who co-wrote this awful, awful film. So let me just go ahead and get this out of the way. I know you guys all had different experiences going to go see this movie. I know me and Rick saw this one in theaters. Rob got a special exclusive, let's just call it that way. So he got to avoid people during this one. I was only in the theater with about I say 6-7 people at most. And Rick, I don't know what the situation was in your theater. What was your audience's reaction to the stuff that they saw in this film? And we'll start there.
I was sitting close to what I presume is a gay couple. They were laughing. The other people in the theater were not. It was pretty much stone silence throughout most of the film. In fact, the only other person that laughed actually was me at a couple of bits. I'm sorry. I found that bye-bye Buttigieg thing funny, but probably for other reasons. And Harvey Milk Duds. Okay, yeah, that was funny.
You had brought that up on Twitter, and it's like I had completely blanked that part out of my mind, out of my memory. I don't know if that's just like memory suppression or I just forgot that actually happened. But the one thing that I noticed with my screening is that, for a lot of the bits that I guess were more LGBTQ centric, there was a few chuckles in the crowd for it. But a lot of the actual comedy, you can tell the parts where they're actually trying to be funny because it's almost like they're waiting for a punchline, but it's just not happening. That the crowd that was there just simply like wasn't in it. And you're talking about a film that really didn't appeal to anyone throughout the course of it. But Rob, let me ask you about your experience. Do you wish that you had saw this one in front of a crowd of at least 5 people per average who actually saw this movie, or are you just happy seeing it with your special presentation?
No, I'm really, really happy I got to watch it from home. I was slightly inebriated, put it that way. So I was in the best mood possible. It was in the best environment possible, even though I love going to the movie theater and it's a great, the experience of it. I've talked about it ad nauseum, but this was a movie I'm glad I could watch at home. And to be honest, it deserves to be watched at home. It doesn't deserve a big screen treatment. there's nothing, there's no new ground that's covered. And I was annoyed mostly, and that's probably why I can't remember any of the funny parts, if there were any, Rick, because I was so mind-numbingly annoyed that I think I was just waiting for it to be over. And then I realized, oh, this is a 2-hour movie. It's not a 90-minute comedy. It's a 2-hour studio movie that I'm going to have to sit through. Okay, fine.
Yeah, there were three points where I laughed. The Harvey Milk thing, when he's going through roid rage, and then about to smash His Holiness Saint Pete Buttigieg's bust, and when the bisexual wants a Hall of Presidents, a Hall of Bisexuals like a Hall of Presidents. Okay, as someone who actually likes the Hall of Presidents, I did laugh. But other than me, the only other people who were laughing were the gay couple next to me. Everyone else in the theater, no, there was just no rollicking laughter like the ad said. I didn't see it.
No, and what's funny here is that the director of this, Nicholas Stoller, and Judd Apatow, the producer, have made multiple films that I've seen and I've liked. So I know that these guys, again, maybe it's because Judd Apatow hasn't made a good film since Funny People in 2009. And Nick Stoller, I think he did Forgetting Sarah Marshall. And I'm trying to remember when that even came out, 2009. Again, it's like these guys have been out of touch, and I guess they're putting their name on this because they thought they could sell it. Nobody went to see this, and it alienated the audience it needed the most.
I believe his last movie before this that he actually directed was Neighbors 2, which goes far back to show you just how unfunny he's been over the last few years. And you're talking about someone who actually, what was the film with Amy Schumer, Trainwreck? I actually kind of like Trainwreck. I didn't hate Trainwreck, and that was kind of before Amy Schumer became just an annoying person to deal with in general. So I actually kind of like that film. But yeah, everything else since then, I'm not sure. Was Judd Apatow involved with This Is the End, that Seth Rogen movie? Was that him, or was that more Seth Rogen and Goldberg?
Yeah, I don't think it was him. I think it was more Rogen and Goldberg.
Okay, just making sure. So yeah, it's been a little while since I've really embraced anything that he's done. So let me ask you just this question really quick, because I actually came into this movie 5 minutes late because I wasn't in a huge rush to go see it. So by the time I walk into the theater, he's giving some kind of speech. I guess it was like a museum, like an award show or something like that. Did they change the plot to this movie? Because I could have swore that leading up to this film that this was about him trying to craft a gay love story for Hollywood producers. At least that was what the early portion of the promotion was. And I feel like plot was nothing in this film whatsoever.
No.
It's did they change that?
That was a part of a montage where he's narrating his podcast, The 11th Brick, where he mentions that they had asked him to write a screenplay, basically the screenplay for Bros. And it was done where you hear Billy Eichner, but the other actor's mouth is the one that it's moving.
Yeah.
So there's a mention of that.
Okay, because I was thinking to myself, did they just fucking hornswoggle me, or did they just completely change the entire synopsis of this film? I could have swore that's what it was supposed to be about, but it wasn't. So obviously the whole film, it lives and dies on Billy Eichner's performance. He plays Bobby Leiber, which is not even a very clever name to come up with. So you're not playing yourself in the movie. He's a curator for a LGBTQ museum. So I guess they have some kind of event coming up that they're planning for where they want to embrace LGBTQ history. And it's all about having these little presentations about how Abe Lincoln is really gay and how all these other heroes that they claim that are part of their community, but it's kind of fishy whether that's ever been confirmed or not. Let's just put it that way, while just calling them outright liars. So they're doing all that, and then in the middle of this, he's a single gay man living in New York City. So his quote unquote love life is essentially going on Grindr, finding random men to have sex with, and then going to gay nightclubs in New York City to find, I guess, more guys to have sex with. And then this is the part where I start biting my tongue pretty early at this film, is that Billy Eichner wants to present a more realistic portrayal of what life is for gay people in the United States, right? The problem is that he's portraying what normal gay life is in places like New York City, or let's be more specific, West Hollywood, which is a place that he specifically mentioned in his tweet storm earlier today. And let's just say that the stuff that goes on in New York and LA isn't exactly what's going on in the rest of the real world that people like him probably look down on. So this idea that, for a normal gay man in a place like New York City, that he'll just show up at somebody's house, immediately takes their clothes off and start jerking off on the bed, and then leaves like 3 seconds later, and that's considered to be, I guess, an engaging encounter. Something that you would be proud of in a sense if you're trying to portray it that way. I think there's a massive disconnect with not only a lot of straight audiences watching this, but a lot of gay audiences as well. Because one thing that I noticed about this film is that he did not portray gay people in the light that I think he wanted to, or maybe he thought in his head. He pretty much portrayed them to be the West Hollywood stereotype of gay people that you see in stuff like Modern Family, and like this is almost like a God, what's the name? The guy who did the producers. I'm thinking
Mel Brooks.
No.
Lane?
I think Nathan Lane. There it is. This is more like it's like an over the top, like Nathan Lane, like top performance to me. What did you guys think of the way that they were portraying the realistic portrayal of LGBTQ communities in this film? Like I say, this is him giving you a window into his world, something that you're supposed to embrace, and I don't see any way that anyone was going to embrace the way that the things were portrayed in this film.
Well, the issue here is all the PR about being the first gay rom-com by a studio and all this history shit, and then it's like you're showing some some urban dwelling, like, sleeping around shithead who's an idiot, who's a museum curator for basically an LGBTQ victim museum. Like, all these people all they're interested in is the pain of the past and all this all their own narcissistic bullshit. And so it's like, and I know that part of that's supposed to be played up for humor. I know some of that's supposed to be like, oh, hey, look how they're bickering just like everybody else, but it didn't land. And this is not a good profile for like a gay character, or any character. Like, this is not a person who respects themselves. And it's like, I realize they're trying to move towards relationship or in the romantic comedy fabric of the movie, but it is so poorly done, and none of the comedy lands. It's just really try hard stereotypes. And like, what's really funny is my favorite podcast is this guy named Bret Easton Ellis. He wrote American Psycho. He wrote a few other books, but he's been talking about all the shit we're talking about now, but he's been doing it for 10 years. And he fucking hates Pride. He hates the sort of hedonistic gay lifestyle that's such a stereotype on
and
TV
he's gay
and
too,
movies.
by the way, just to throw that.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I forgot to mention that. This is a gay guy. And so it's like, it's a very interesting perspective and everything. But I've been hearing this shit for years, how it's like, that's not, there's a lot more to the gay community than just us sleeping with each other.
Well, it is interesting that they're trying to tell us about how gay men and lesbians, they're just like straight people, but at the same time you focus so much on the sex. I don't know about the Grindr hookup things, because I do know people who have actually met, and I guess he started their romance, starting with a Grindr hookup. Of course, naive me, I had to have Grindr explained to me. Because I thought, well, never mind what I thought.
Because you're a pure brain.
Because I'm what?
Because you're pure brain.
Yes, but I'm getting better. Like, I am munching on my Pride ice cream here.
If this film didn't ruin you, then I don't know what will. To be honest with you, I mean, but the thing that got me record scratching the most in this whole movie was this whole idea of gender reveal gay orgies, I was like, wait, excuse me. So you guys, I'm assuming you guys adopted a kid, and your way of celebrating this adoption is to have an orgy.
That scene, I was a little, I'd forgotten that it was a gender reveal, because the guy was trying, it was a threesome, and this guy, I guess the comedy came from the fact that he was trying to make it a foursome. And nobody wanted to respond. But I mean, I'll take slight issue with what Rob said a little earlier, that the museum, well, at least um, Aaron did tell Billy, Bobby, whatever he calls himself, that it was focused too much on the victimhood. That's why you got those holograms of openly lesbian Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But I mean,
so,
all the characters are sort of so focused on themselves and, representation in the most shallow form,
yes.
So,
One thing that I did have trouble with, and I do agree with you at this point, is when they were talking when they thought that these things were funny, when they had the out athlete of the year, and he babbles on about how hot he is, and how hard it is to be that hot. When you had Kristen Chenoweth with that ridiculous, sight gag of that big hat with the Stonewall riot, and then him getting an award for cis white gay male of the year. I'm going, this is not funny. This is too forced. You're trying too hard to try to make all this funny. You're not succeeding. You're not succeeding. And I groaned at that. I thought, this is so awful. And just I think if they had tweaked some things, it would have been better. I just don't get why
Like
they went that way.
Get a new co-writer, get a new star, get rid of half the people who are in this movie. You could have tweaked a lot of things, to be honest with you. The thing that go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that I know that one of the big points for Billy Eichner was that it was going to be an all LGBTQ cast.
Yeah.
But you don't have big names. And like I said on Twitter, outside of maybe Luke Evans, and not a lot of people even associate him with being gay. But outside of that, you really like I said, really, do you think guys, straight or gay, are going to leave the football games so that they could watch Billy Eichner's ass? Is that going to be a selling point for anyone? Anyone? No. He's
you
not
mean while their girlfriend's bitching about Roe v. Wade being overturned?
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, no. This movie was, again, like I said, it was promoted as a niche movie, despite whatever he kept saying. It has no big names, and it's not funny. It's not romantic. And again, who is going to want to watch a movie where you have, what is it, visible double oral sex, or versus you're going to watch like the Packers game? I mean, you're not. It's an absurdity. Maybe if they had released this in the summer, it might have done better, but not now.
Well, there's two things about this movie that certifiably does not work, and the whole film falls apart because of this. First off, let's start with I think you said Luke McFarlane, who's the co-star of this film. He plays Aaron in the film. So Aaron is like, the hunky. I think he even makes like a joke that he's everything that I would never look for in a man, but I'm still attracted to him anyway, right? Something around those lines. So he's like the love interest of this movie, and their whole relationship relies on these two. But Billy and Luke have no chemistry whatsoever in this film. Like, they were trying to go for sort of like an opposite attract type of thing, but it just came off where it was like, why would a guy like Luke go up with like a whiny, frail, neurotic dude like fucking Billy Eichner in any way, shape, or form? I just never felt like that anything in this film regarding them being romantically involved was believable from Jump Street. And for those of you who don't know, Luke McFarlane has also starred in plenty of Hallmark movies. Now, this is the central problem with this film. Is that there's a lot of knocks in this movie about Hallmark and the whole way that Hallmark like presents itself and like promotes it, like its movies and things of that nature. The problem is that this film is trying everything in its power to be like a Hallmark movie. Like, they're trying to do all the tropes that you would see in like these romantic comedy movies that you would watch on something like Hallmark. The problem is that in the context of this universe, none of those things work here, because put it in perspective. Throughout the course of this entire film, we see both Billy and Luke's character. They both sleep with multiple guys throughout the entire course of the film. And that's just not even including like each other or whatnot. So they're sleeping with multiple guys. They have multiple partners. They themselves have sex multiple times throughout the film. So you think to yourself about 45 minutes into this, okay, what is this leading up to? because I mean, you guys are basically already kind of sort of in a relationship, so that's not gonna like move into anything. At no point whatsoever do they try to build anything that would be meaningful, like, oh, maybe I could see myself getting married to this guy one day. Like they even like purposely try to walk around that issue throughout the course of the film, especially towards the ending. And then, like I said, you're sleeping with all these other people. So there's no romantic connection. There's no, like, in a relationship or in a story where you're trying to build to a relationship, you're trying to bring two people together so they can essentially become a couple and then start a new life together. But you've removed all of those things slowly but surely, just plucking them away from the sense of the story to what you're just watching two guys like decide, do they want to be a couple? Do they want to be together for 3 months, or do they just want to go back and have more gay orgies with the couple that wanted to have sex with them? It's like none of the themes in this film gel together at all throughout the course of it. I'm thinking to myself, you can't do a film like this because no one is going to buy into the story whatsoever. I think that's the biggest problem with the movie. Am I just spewing off nonsense here, Rob, or do you kind of agree with what I'm saying?
I mean, it just seems incomplete with what it's trying to do, because it's like it's trying to have this traditional romantic comedy format, but it's also like, oh hey, we're having random sex with people, and like we're cheating on each other, but it's not really cheating because we're okay or not okay with it culturally, and it just it doesn't really add up. It doesn't add up to much, and there's no reason for us to care for these people. Like it's like, I guess it's just watching two gay guys try to grow closer together, and like, but it just keeps getting, blown apart by these moments of conflict that don't land. So it's just, I think the whole thing just is really badly conceived and executed. And there are at least some talented people involved, so that's always a shame.
Well, I never bought the concept that Luke would be so heartbroken and be weepy waiting for Bobby. We have to call him Bobby. The character's name is Bobby, but
yeah,
might as well just call him Billy at this
Billy
point.
Eichner, yeah.
Yeah. I never bought that idea that he would be upset. Moreover, I think that Luke was right to be upset. I mean, he wasn't asking him to hide his identity, because I'm assuming that the parents already knew that Luke was gay. What he was maybe saying was not, kind of not be so militant and angry and just going after these people. When he goes after the mother, I thought that Luke was absolutely right to get mad at him, because that's his mother that this guy's yelling at, basically. And whatever the rightness or wrongness of if they both agree that 7-8-year-olds should be going to an LGBTQ plus museum to see pictures of or see holograms of Harvey Milk before they get their Harvey Milk duds. I mean, that's the parents' decision. It's not Billy Eichner's decision to make, or Bobby's decision to make. He was absolutely right to be angry with him. But no, we're supposed to believe that instead Luke is wrong and he shouldn't have responded that way, and he's just waiting quietly and patiently for this guy. Look, Luke, he could get any guy. I'm assuming he could go back to his the baseball cosplayer and his husband to have more sex. He could pick up anyone. I mean, he could pick up his former hockey teammate, because he seemed to be getting into a relationship there. So why is he all weepy over someone who is constantly talking, annoying, could be close to insane, in my view, and who really should have gone after James Buchanan if he really wanted a gay president? Pick on the worst president. There's no connection between James Buchanan possibly being gay and him being the worst president. But look, there's more proof about James Buchanan being gay than there is for Abraham Lincoln. So
it's a number of disconnects, because the whole fight, that scene you're talking about, where it's a very narcissistic mindset where Luke's character goes up to him and says, hey, my parents are kind of old school, so just tone it down because I want them to like you, right? That's kind of like the idea. But in Billy's mind, he's like, oh, you're telling me not to be myself? You're in the wrong here for telling me not to be exactly who I am, even though I literally have never met your parents before, and we're trying to actually make something in this relationship. So clearly, you're not even committed enough to fake it just for one night, which I'm pretty sure everyone who has met your significant other's parents at one point in time has done the same thing, at least on the very first night, right? Like, you kind of want to put a good impression, especially if you want to take the relationship seriously. But no, asking someone like Billy to do that is a massive disconnect. And then, like, it's just other things that go on with this film. Like, keep in mind, these two met at like a gay rave club where Luke told him right off of the gate that, oh yeah, I'm here. I'm going to go have sex with a couple of guys who wanted to hook up on me like later tonight. I'm thinking to myself, okay, imagine you were like a straight guy at a club and the girl who you were talking to said that, oh yeah, I'm going to go have a three-way with this other couple here later tonight. That usually means the conversation is over, unless you're an absolute simp, right? Is that too harsh to say that the selling sign of, oh yeah, I'm gonna have a three-way with these other people here tonight? It's like, okay, well, you have a nice night. I'm gonna go talk to somebody else. But in this movie, it's just completely normalized. Like, hey, that's just what we do around here.
Is that what goes
on? Is that what goes on in the gay world?
Apparently.
Okay, but you present gay culture as just this one overriding thing. This sex dominant culture where you're sleeping with somebody every night, or 5 guys in a week. What did you say it was? Like, he counted like 30 guys he slept with in a week. And it's like,
I can't believe you counted.
But it's like, okay, and it doesn't matter what it is, guys. Okay, it could be cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
You're not like, don't eat 30 cheeseburgers in a fucking week. You know what I mean? It's probably a bad idea to fuck 30 different asses in a week, not to get explicit.
Yeah.
It's like, do you know what I mean? It's like, there's something where it's like you're trying to fill a hole somewhere. And guess what, guys? I'll be honest right now. I'm going to come clean. I watch something like, 20 movies every week. I probably have issues, okay? But I'm not out there like, putting my health at risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Like I said, I just real quick before I go to Rick, is that, even from like a straight perspective, and I've said this many times on the show, it's like having sex with like 30 women in a week sounds absolutely exhausting, let alone just all the health risks that comes with it, right? Because it's like, oh yeah, if you had like a mind of a 13-year-old, you probably think like, oh yeah, I'm going to sleep with 30 women in 1 week. In reality, once you've had like sex with like the 5th one, you just think to yourself, oh shit, I got 25 more to go. It's like, I'm already like I don't want to do this anymore. Like it does get to a point where it's like, okay, you may have a problem if this is like a normal life for you, but they're trying to present this as like, no, it's just completely normal. If you have a problem with it, something's wrong with you in this scenario. I'll go ahead with Rick.
I'm pretty sure that the gay people I know are nowhere near promiscuous as 30 people in a week. And moreover, it strikes me as unfortunate that you can have this kind of promiscuity, because honestly I was not counting, and I don't know why you would, but you have 30 sexual partners in 1 week and not one mention about condoms or any type of protection of in a world. I mean, the guy, that was one of the lines, we got AIDS, they got glee. When you talk about the difference in ages. And I'm going, well, there's a reason why your generation probably got AIDS, because you were out there having unprotected sex with a massive amount of people. That's not very good. And I'm sure even gay people would say, you know what, 30 sexual partners without any kind of protection, that is beyond irresponsible for yourself and for others.
Like I said, you can't even call that out as irresponsible behavior. You have to call it out as like, oh, it's just completely normal. And then people try to be like, oh, well, you're shocked that people have sex 30 times in a week. You must not be getting enough. It's like, no, I'm just not desperate. I actually have a little bit of self-respect for myself. Maybe that's something that should be considered. So, I mean, there's a number of things that this film tries to normalize to an audience that clearly doesn't view this stuff as normal. Like, they tried to normalize like the whole polyamorous dating thing, where a group of people just decide they're going to be in a relationship with each other, to where you could have up to like 8 people in a quote unquote relationship, and that's supposed to be considered normal. The idea of thruples, where a
That was
gay
a Hallmark
couples
movie.
exactly, or Utah, or the idea, or the idea is like, yeah, this gay couple is just going to invite someone into their quote unquote relationship, and they're just gonna start dating that person now, and that's gonna be normalized. And like I said, the whole gender reveal gay orgy stuff, which was a huge like raised eye for me. I was like, wait, what? You're adopting kids, and you're gonna have? Doesn't that sound like something that will be like negating in the adoption process for that particular crowd? But keep in mind that all this is going on during a monkeypox outbreak. And as I mentioned before, there was a red band trailer for this film, which showed the scene with the first gay orgy, I guess you could say, because there's actually multiple gay orgies in this film. But with the first one, and that was in the red band trailer. Now, when monkeypox broke out and started spreading across the country, they actually removed the red band trailer from theaters and only played the regular trailer that had that cut out, because obviously they didn't want to infer that, oh, maybe it's the reckless sexual behaviors of some of these individuals that are spreading this disease. But then you have a film like this, which is exactly promoting these same behaviors that led to the disease getting spread in the first place. So it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And if this is what you're going to present as normal within your own community, you then can't then turn around and then be like, oh, we need to remove the stigma when these things backfire on us. It's like, no, there's a reason why those things exist to begin with. What do you guys think of just all the relationship triangles here that are being presented in this film to normal audiences?
There's a lot of stupid people who are
Yeah.
at the head of PR for this movie, because they're allowing Billy Eichner to be just its mouthpiece when it's a bad movie. It's not good. It's not well thought out. It's not well executed. And regardless of like the whole, yeah, we all know the monkeypox thing. We all know where the majority of cases come from. And the fact that there were kids that were infected, it's pretty fucked up. I'm not even going to get into it. So I'm not for that, but at the same time, it's like, this should not be representative of gay culture. It's a slap in the face to self-respecting gay people. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is just like, I wish that when studios made their like big tentpole tokenist pieces of shit, they had a little bit more like thought into it. Just because it's like, if you're gonna represent these people or claim to represent them, you should at least try to make something that they're going to be entertained by at the very least.
Well, I think you're right in that it's been poorly marketed. As much as they claim otherwise, this is going to be a niche film. It's going to appeal to a very small number of audiences. Excuse me. I don't know how they think that I go back to when I saw Rocket Man with a friend of mine who loves Elton John, and they had a very brief. And he didn't deserve to get nominated, just for the record. I don't know why they keep saying that. Well, they had a very brief gay sex scene, which I thought was brief, and he commented that it was like watching a gay porn movie. And I was thinking, well, it's gay porn movie is probably more explicit than what we're seeing, but probably not as explicit as what I was watching. I, being naive, was not aware that you could literally perform oral sex. The two men could perform oral sex on another man at the same time. These are things that I was completely unaware of. And you're trying to sell this as a romantic comedy. Who is this going to appeal to? On all this group sex, this is, I can say, as far as I know, this is not the gay world, or at least the gay people that I know. They're not. I mean, they want to be. They want to talk about being in a monogamous relationship. That's why we have same-sex marriages. I mean, I wonder. I'm trying to picture like gay conservatives like Guy Benson. Does he sleep around? Did he have like 30 sex partners in a week?
Identify with this movie?
Yes. Is this something that was it? Spencer Clavin or Andrew Clavin, or is this something that they would say, yes, this is my life, yes, I have had multiple sex partners in a week? Or are they going to say, you know what, maybe this is not the world I know? Is it? I don't know. The whole thing was just poorly marketed. I don't care what they say. This is a movie that was not going to have mass appeal. It has no big stars. You're not going to get people to run to the theaters just so they could see Billy Eichner shave his behind. I mean, who would want to see this? I'll be
It's
frank.
not,
I had never heard of Billy Eichner until more or less this movie, because I had never seen those Billy on the Street things. I saw
yeah.
them. I saw them when they were showing them in the pre-show for the Alamo, and I think I would be startled if this random man just came up to me and just thrust a microphone in my face and asked me a very bizarre question. Like, I don't know who this man is. I'd be scared. So I don't get the appeal, and his Twitter rampages in the past day or two have been more sad than anything. Someone take that man's phone away. I mean, he's just going on and on, and he's making things
Well,
worse.
here's the thing. He's always been like that. So the idea that you would put an entire movie around this guy who has said some pretty off the wall shit, like we've covered in Unbounding, he's talking about that he hopes that Trump and all his supporters burn in hell. He's made a whole bunch of lambasted comments. I'm shocked that people weren't just enthusiastic to go see a movie starring this guy of all people, who probably told half the country to burn in hell in the first place. Now he's out on the line and at the VMAs begging people to go watch his movie, and then somehow he's surprised that no one went to go see it. I mean, maybe look in the mirror once in a while and you actually see why people chose to stay home and not support this stuff.
But again,
So
why? I mean, why did he decide that he was going to be the star? He's not going to. He's
Because he's
not
a
going to.
narcissist.
He's not. Yeah, but he's not going to open a movie.
No.
There's no name recognition. He should have just agreed to maybe have one or two straight actors who could play these parts, as much as he might loathe that concept, or try to find the biggest openly gay star that he could find. That would be, for me, it would be Luke Evans. Other than that, I can't think of that. I mean, was he going to hire Ian McKellen to be to be one of the lovers?
Yeah, let me tell you this. Just real quick before I go to Rob, Ian McKellen would rather fucking die than be in any film associated with Billy Eichner. I'm just telling you that right now. Go ahead, Rob.
But this is one of the biggest open secrets in Hollywood. Everybody knows this, that's a studio executive or that works in the business or works with the box office. Gay stories do not bring people to the theater. And so this has been true for a long time. So unless it's very well made, it has stars, or it is marketed in the right way, you're not going to get people. This movie will not make its budget back. I'm just telling you right now. If the opening weekend was this bad, it's not making $22 million. I mean, maybe it will overseas or something, Europe. I don't know.
Except
but
in
it would have to be in Europe because it's already banned in the Middle East and China.
Right. So starting out, it was already a really tough hill to climb, and he should have had more humility and said, look, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to plan this out really smartly, and even if I write it, I'm going to have somebody else star in it, because hey, I'm not a big enough name to get people to come to the theater. But that didn't happen. This guy, the annoying guy from the late seasons of Parks and Recreation.
Yep.
That's where I first saw Billy Eichner, and the fact that he's in his own movie right now that's failing just seems, pretty spot on.
Yeah, like I said, it's narcissism on display on the highest degree. Because, like I said, if you're going to even write this film, okay, get somebody else to star in it. Don't star in it in yourself. Kind of separate yourself in the project from that degree. But of course, he couldn't do that. And then he's also such a narcissist that when the on Sunday afternoon, when the article started showing about, this film is bombing, the film didn't do projections. He saw that he couldn't just let it go. He couldn't just say, hey, look, I still support this film. I still think it's a good film. Nope. He had to go straight to blaming people. Because as I mentioned in our Twitter thread earlier today, it's like progressives have this default ideology, this mindset that nothing is ever their fault. So their way of coping with this reality is that when they fail, it's somebody else's fault. It's not the fact that, hey, they just made a bad movie, or hey, they didn't just market the movie as well as they wanted to. Hey, maybe we didn't just reach people. No, it's the fact that there's just too many bigots and homophobes out there. You guys won't go see this movie. Now, straight people go out there and see this movie, which we openly mock you in the trailer for this film. It's somehow that wasn't a winning strategy.
That is such a cop-out. That is such bull. that he will blame homophobia for this. I mean, does he not know how how the United States in particular is probably the most open and welcoming
Yeah.
society for gays. You have openly gay everything, openly gay ministers, openly gay secretaries of transportation, openly gay mayors, openly gay teachers. I mean, you've seen this constantly. I mean, if he really wants to talk homophobia, show this in the Palestinian areas where they throw people off the
Yeah.
roofs. Show this in Iran. Show
Yeah.
this.
Go to
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia where this movie was just banned and go lecture them about how they're a bunch of homophobes for not accepting this movie.
yeah. And it's easy. I mean, again, this is a niche movie. This is a niche movie. This it has no stars. It has
But
very limited appeal. How are you going to get people to watch this, or like in Top Gun Maverick levels? You're
do you know
not.
what, Rick? You know what a better movie was, and
What?
it made a lot, and it's going to make a lot more money. So is this movie that came out in 2007 called "I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry"
Oh gosh.
with
Yeah.
Adam Sandler and
Yep.
Kevin James?
Yep.
I saw that movie in a theater 3 times as an 18-year-old. And that movie's literally surrounding gay marriage and like
Yep.
trying to keep your benefits, because of like the Kevin James' wife died and keep his kids on the insurance. He had to pretend that he's with Adam Sandler. And it's not a bad, I mean, yes, it's an Adam Sandler movie. So yes, it's bad, but it's got Jessica Biel like in her underwear. She looks great in it. And I just, anyway, my point is there are ways to do this kind of movie and like not fuck it up. So, anyway.
Audiences are so homophobic that they're willing to go watch, like you said. You've got The Birdcage, and you've got I actually have seen a gay rom com. It was called Breaking Fast, and it's about an openly gay, devout Muslim man who finds love with an actor, and it's much better than this. Although to be fair, they don't actually kiss until the end. Uh, and because that one took the premise seriously, this one, Bros was trying to be broad and absurdist, and it just came off as cringy. It was just it's just bad, and Billy Eichner needs to accept the fact that maybe people, even gay people, are not going to be interested in seeing this movie. You opened in fourth. You lost to Smile. You lost to, like, you barely edged out like this Indian film. What are you thinking?
What's the line in Mean Girls? Nobody likes you. Maybe somebody could like come to that conclusion. That would solve a lot of his problems.
But I mean, come on. In the past few years, we've had Moonlight win Best Picture. We've had Brokeback Mountain be nominated and be considered the quote
Eddie
legitimate
Redmayne.
winner. Yeah. Oh golly, don't bring up that man. He didn't deserve that Oscar.
Michael Keaton got robbed.
Yes, he did. He did because he didn't campaign as well. But in any case, you've had so many gay stories, and maybe it's true that all of them do focus on the tragic side. But but you can make uplifting, positive movies about gay life, but not to the point where you're having these scenes where, I'm sorry, I can't get past that part where two men are performing oral sex on another man, and you're not really trying to hide it. And I guess that there's that the sense of vulnerability when Luke says, "Okay, you can go inside of me this time." I guess that's something in the gay world where, but again, that's not going to be understood by straight men, and
Especially considering the fact that we've already seen you guys have sex like 5 times before that scene. So it's like, what does it really mean?
yeah, and it's just so much that I did not understand, and I didn't care to understand. Well, I don't want to say it that way. It's just that there's just too much in the beginning. It's too broad to be funny, and they're trying too hard. And they could have had a story if maybe Luke was I mean, he didn't seem to be as stereotypically gay, because I mean, I guess gay guys don't like country music.
Yeah.
And I guess
Well, that's the
they
conflict there, and I'll say this is that Luke kind of represented. I mean, I want to say more of his actions. Well, not even that, because like I say, he did sleep with a lot of guys in the course of this film too. But he was kind of more representing like the normal gay guy, like in a sense, like he's not like overly flamboyant and annoying like Billy's character was. Like he would basically be like he's just your average guy, except for he's gay, right? Like he'd probably be your friend if he wasn't in the context of this film. And that's kind of what they were trying to represent with him and his character. But like I said, they're trying to encapsulate every single gay person, every single trans and lesbian person into this overarching over sexualized community with the LGBTQ, and it just doesn't work. There's just a big disconnect with what you're trying to portray and what reality is. It's almost what we were talking about with the Woman King a few weeks ago. Like you can't have both in the same realm. So let me just fast forward here to the ending of this film, because this is where the film completely lost me. Spencer had asked earlier that I talk about Luke. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the film, like he was really the only redeemable person like in this movie in my mind. Like I said, if it was maybe focused on him and they cut a lot of the other crap out of it, this probably would have been a decent film. But the part where it loses me was the scene we talked about earlier, where they're having, I guess, Christmas dinner with Luke's mother. And his mother in the movie is a school teacher, and she talks about. Keep in mind, like her character is not portrayed as like this bigoted Christian like character or anything like that. Like she knows that her son is gay, and she's very accepting of it. But she made the comment that well, I teach elementary school kids, and I think those kids at that age, they're too young to learn about LGBTQ type stuff and things of that nature. This obviously bothers Billy's character in the film. So he decides to literally make a pro-grooming argument by saying that, well, I don't believe that it's too young to teach children about this type of stuff. And the argument that he makes in this scene is that, well, when I was 12 years old, my parents took me to a sex show where I saw 7 penises. And he literally repeated that line like multiple times throughout this entire scene. That was like 7 penises, lady. That was supposed to be played up for comedy. And the whole takeaway of the scene was that, well, I got exposed to this when I was 12 years old, and look how it turned out for me. I'm a normal person, so just because it worked for me doesn't mean it can work for all the other kids. And I'm like, no. First of all, Billy, I don't know if you know this. You're a 43-year-old single gay man who still uses Grindr unironically to find hookups. Because I don't know if you know this, you're kind of an insufferable person that either other gay people don't want to be around. That's the first reality that you should probably come to terms with right off the gate here. And then he goes on later on in the film, they bring the children back. Keep in mind, this is a very raunchy and explicit sex comedy. And for some reason, he wants to die in this hill that, no, we need to open up the world that we've just presented to you and presented up to elementary school kids. Because if we can just help that one gay kid in elementary school, then we can help him become a better person. Like, that's the whole narrative they're trying to go with the ending. And I'm like, why would you go this route in a film of this nature? Of all the borderline degenerate stuff, and even more so degenerate stuff that we talked about in this film, why would you end this movie on a note of, oh, by the way, we need to be more inclusive with children? No, they're not high school kids. I can see an argument for high school kids. I might even go with you with middle school kids. We're talking about elementary school kids. Why would you ever think that this will be the message that you want to end your film with in a film to this degree? This completely lost the entire movie to me. If they hadn't gone this route, I was probably more willing to give this somewhere like a 1, maybe a 1.5 out of 5, because there was things that I did enjoy at certain points once they moved past the first act. But this whole third act just completely killed it for me. What did you think of the way they tried to end this film, Rob?
I think it's incredibly tone deaf, because here's the thing. I don't know what Rick's laughing at, but there are things that get, okay. It's so completely tone deaf, because it's like, okay, you were shown dicks when you were 12 or whatever. You're also a man who's 43, constantly alone, constantly sleeping around with other men. So you think maybe there's a connection there. And I feel like the movie tries to justify it by having, his boyfriend also sleep around and also be kind of like the sex thrill seeking behavior or whatever. But it's like, that kind of behavior screams that you have, again, you need to, I'm not going to say go to therapy. I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be a woman, but I will say that you need to like get some help, man. You see, there's some issues there.
Yeah.
Like it's not healthy to do that. And so I would say you should probably seek help. So yeah, you have no right to lecture somebody's mom about what is or isn't appropriate. And I don't want to be the person that's like, hey, do you have a background in childhood education? It's like, you don't need to have that to have common sense, which is there are things that are not appropriate for kids, period.
And before I let Rick go, I just want to say this. You brought up a great point too, that throughout the course of this movie, there's several things that are brought up that within the confines of this film, you think to yourself, where they're like promoting like, thruples and gay orgies and all this reckless behavior. You think to yourself, and you guys think that this is a good thing? Like, that's the only thing I can think of. The entire thing, like, you're portraying this. Keep in mind, like, I'm not making this movie. They're the ones making this movie, so they're portraying this stuff as a positive. And these are all like red flags we would point out in normal people and go, do you think that this is part of the problem of maybe where you are in life? That maybe think that this is something that you should come to terms with? But like I said, they just want to completely normalize it. They don't want you to quote unquote stigmatize any of this stuff. But it's like you can't normalize a behavior that we just know naturally is not normal. Like you just can't do it. And trying to hide behind, the rainbow flag or the trans flag is not going to help you in that case.
Well, there are a couple of points that I would say. First, I was laughing at the sequel, The Broking, which, by the way, poor Billy Eichner actually did think that this was going to have a sequel. There was an interview where they talked about that.
Yeah, go with that,
but
buddy. Maybe
first off,
Peacock.
which I still have, by the way. They have not canceled it yet. But first off, Bobby or Billy forgets that it was his parents' decision to take their child to go see Love and Compassion. And I'm sure that's kind of a riff of Love, Valor, Compassion. It was the parents' choice, and that's within their rights to do that. What he's talking about is, no, we're going to take the educator, the teacher, the person that we're leaving him with, and we, the teacher or the educator, is going to make that decision for the parents, regardless of what the parent might think. There's a difference between that. Second, I don't know if 7 or 8 year olds should go to a gay museum any more than I would question whether a 7 or 8 year old should go to a Holocaust museum. I think something like a Holocaust museum would be far too intense for someone of that age. Maybe in high school, that would be appropriate. And the same with an LGBTQ museum, where they get to learn that Abraham Lincoln is gay, and we get to meet Eleanor Roosevelt's mistress. That might be more appropriate, but for a child, I don't know. And I think the last point on that is that's not dialogue. That's not something that a person would say during the course of a conversation. And that's the problem that I have with a lot of scripts, is that they use kind of speechifying as dialogue. That's not the character speaking. That's a screenwriter trying to use a character to speak, quote, their truth or their ideas. So this is not a character. This is Billy Eichner giving his own ideas about this and deciding, I'm going to use, quote, this character to further what I think, regardless of the logic of the scene. So that those were my issues with that particular section. Because well, maybe you could tell the kids Harvey Milk Duds. I'm sorry, that was funny to me. But
see, and we're about to talk about a movie that has a lot of artistic indulgence, but like that's a different kind of indulgence, where it's like you are projecting an ideology over any kind of story logic or movie logic that we're working with, and it's not true. Like people that aren't stupid, it hits them like it doesn't work, it doesn't fit. So it's just, and it's so apparent. I didn't give a score to this, by the way. I gave it a half star on Letterboxd earlier today. So it's
by the way,
star review.
I just want to throw that out there. You have to give half stars. That's the lowest they'll allow you to give. So if you can give this one 0, I would give this one a 0 out of 5. This is I think I'm going to say this is the worst film I've seen so far this year. And I thought long and hard about it because I had to compare it to, is this worse than Bodies, Bodies, Bodies? And I think to myself, there was probably more in that film that I actually liked out of this film, and I enjoyed nothing out of that film. And then, is this worse than Not Okay? Yes, because this is something that was actually supposed to be taken seriously in major movie theaters. So, yeah, this is the worst film that I've seen so far this year. Look, I saw They Them. We reviewed They Them here a few months ago. I like that movie supremely more than I like this one, even though I had big problems with the ending, which is why I got such a low score. But there was a lot more in that film that I actually enjoyed. And that was another film that was essentially trying to do the same thing that they wanted to do in this film, which was kind of portray the LGBTQ community in a more positive light. And I think they did a far better job at that in that film, which was a slasher film, by the way, than Billy Eichner did in this romantic comedy. This is the worst film I've seen so far this year. And I honestly can't see a film worse than this coming out this year. I know there's still some bad films to come out there, but I can't see anything being worse than this. This is a 0 out of 5 for me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is the first film that I can think of that's giving the Gray Man serious competition. I'm still struggling with whether I would watch this over.
I mean, for me, it's not even up for debate. I watched The Gray Man 17 times in a row over anything that this film has presented to me,
or maybe 30 times. One for each sexual partner.
And I'd rather do that.
I put this in my review, and maybe it was a little too flippant, but after seeing Bros, if I were gay, I'd go back into the closet because I'd be ashamed to be associated with Billy Eichner. I'm going to have to. Yes, I gave this. I'd probably give this a 0 because it's not funny and it's not romantic. And those are the two things that you need in a romantic comedy. I laughed a few times, but probably not at the things that I was meant to laugh at. And I just found him. I found the main character pretty grating, insane. He just seemed to be endlessly annoying and talk and just go on. At one point, I think I wrote in my notes, does this guy ever stop talking? And he's pretty insufferable. But the thing is, I'm not even sure that there was any acting. I think this was Billy Eichner doing a thinly veiled version of himself. And I don't want to think that because I don't know the man. I don't know his work. But this was you could make, and I said this in my review, I think you could make a good same-sex romantic comedy, and we're already going to get the Hallmark
gay
version
Hallmark
of
movie.
Yeah, we are getting the gay Hallmark movie,
which will unironically be a better movie than this movie that we watched tonight.
I will probably set to record it when it comes out around the Christmas season. But this movie is trying to, I don't know, if I were a gay person, I would say, why are you trying to portray our community as just being sex crazed and just stuffing left, right, and center when I want to have a committed relationship with someone and marry them now that I can. And I just want to throw in one last thing. If this movie gets a Best Original Song nomination, which they're trying to push, I would object because that love song, that no, Love Is Not Love, I'm assuming that's the song they're talking about. That's basically, it sounds like the riff off Garth Brooks's The Dance. But the curious thing is, when Billy Eichner or Bobby is writing the song, he's looking at Brad Paisley. That's not Garth Brooks that they're showing. That's Brad Paisley. So do they not even know the country stars look different? I was confused at that point.
You're implying that they put any effort into the storytelling or any of the situations in this movie, and they clearly didn't.
I do my best.
Yeah, I mean, so let me just put it this way: the last 3 weeks have been absolutely, it's been an experience to say the least. These last 3 movies that we've seen, all 3 of them are in my top 10 worst of the year. And for very different reasons, because each movie is terrible in their own way, but not specifically the same way. But out of the 3 that I've seen, I think the best one of the 3 was probably Don't Worry, Darling. Do you guys agree with that? That Don't Worry, between this one, The Woman King, and Don't Worry, Darling, I think Don't Worry, Darling is probably the best of the 3 that we've seen, and that's not saying much.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, are you going with The Woman King?
I'm probably going with The Woman King.
Okay.
Because Lashana Lynch was good in that. But No, I think it's probably going to be The Woman King, Don't Worry Darling, and then Bros. Rob, I'm sorry, Rob, did you have anything? I don't know if you said anything about, concluding.
No, he gave it basically a
Yeah.
0.
0. Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not going to you're not going to get the 2-disc special edition for this?
You're not gonna get the was it the Cinetron? The
Criterion?
It's Criterion,
No,
yeah,
and
Criterion.
what's funny is like, when I was a kid, I grew up wanting to seek out which I know just makes me sound like a weirdo, but it's like I wanted to seek out gay cinema just because as a way of like learning about something I didn't know about,
Yeah.
And there's a good rich history of good movies about gay culture. This is not one of them. This makes it a clown show. This is like a caricature, and this is like a drag version of what it is to be gay, basically. That's how much of a joke this movie was. So yeah, I'm surprised how bad it was, how barren of ideas and genuine comedy it was.
You a homophobe?
Yes. Oh, by the way, this is our first triple goose egg we've ever given a review. So maybe this is the worst film of the year. So maybe it's time to stop bringing up The Gray Man as a bad movie.
It might be. I don't know. I mean, at least I got to see nice parts of Prague for The Gray Man. So
yeah. And Anna de Armas, who's better than anything that this movie ever presented. And we'll get to her in a second.
Oh yeah.
I do want to give a quick little, recommendation before we move on to our next film here. Is that, believe it or not, there are still good movies in movie theaters, and I saw 2 movies this weekend that were actually pretty solid. One was the film Smile, which we talked about. I think we talked about this like a week ago because of the whole marketing campaign behind it. Because I guess instead of spending like millions of dollars trying to promote this film, they just bought tickets between home plate at like some of the baseball games that are on television and just starts like smiling creepily into the camera. And which is kind of effective because people did pick it up and they did cover it. And because of that, it ended up making $22 million, which is more than any other movie we've seen in the last couple of months. So clearly their marketing campaign is far better than any of these other films that we've watched. And the film is actually pretty good. Is it the best horror movie? No, but I'm pretty sure it'll be better than the last Halloween movie. So, I mean, there's that. You can put him to his cap. And another really, really good film that's actually really good, if you haven't seen it yet, it's a film called Pearl. Have any of you guys seen Pearl yet?
Nope.
I've heard of it.
It's a film with Mia Goth, who I wasn't really sold on Mia Goth before this film. I think I'm sold on her afterwards. She's absolutely great in this movie. This is a prequel to the film X, which I actually haven't seen yet. I'm hoping to finish that one later this week. But yeah, she's absolutely spectacular in this film, playing a crazy World War I era psychopathic chick who's raised on a farm. I think that's probably my top 10 best movies of the year. I don't know if it's going to stay there, but I say it's on the bottom tier of my top 10 best list of the year. It's a very, very good film. Probably the best film that's in theaters right now if you're not going to go see Top Gun Maverick for the 18th time in the last 4 months. So I'll put those 2 films over. There are good movies out there. We don't just hate everything, by the way. No comment. As in Cassie, of course, going to the movies with my friend. Smile or Pearl? I say Pearl is probably the better movie, but it is a bloody movie though too. So I'm not sure if your friend is like into like bloody type stuff, but it's definitely a bloody film if you want to go see that. Smile is more like PG-13 horror, so it just depends on what kind of horror you're looking into. And then
if you want horror, just go see a movie where 2 men perform oral sex simultaneously on another man.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be horror.
Exactly, and that's only the first gay orgy scene in the film, and that terrible, terrible movie. But we're moving on from that garbage film to a film that was actually somewhat decent. Let's go on to Netflix's Blonde. Now, I'm actually going to play a short little TV spot here. I don't know how YouTube is going to be happy with this one or not. So just in case if we get pulled off of YouTube for any certain period of time, we will be back. Just hold on. And then also remind you, I do have a Twitch channel, by the way, Society Reviews at Twitch, where we'll never get pulled off because unlike YouTube, Twitch does not suck. So let's go ahead and play this for Blonde.
How'd you get your start?
What start? guess I was discovered. Please come. Don't abandon me.
She's coming.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was a TV spot from our good friend 11 for the NC-17 film Blonde on Netflix. Now, it feels like it's been forever since I've seen an NC-17 film. I feel like they don't even make them anymore for the obvious reasons that it doesn't make the studios any money to, I guess, promote an NC-17 film. But I guess Netflix is the best platform for it because it's not like they have to worry about the box office anyway when you're doing a film like this. And there's been a lot of talk going into this about Ana de Armas playing the role of Marilyn Monroe. Was she the right choice? Could she pull off the accent and things of that nature? Let me just start off by saying this, is that I think she did a great job in this role. I'm not saying she's going to win an Academy Award anytime soon, probably not, but I think she did play the role of Marilyn Monroe very, very well. And before I let you guys talk about how you felt about her in the film, obviously Marilyn Monroe is a lot of things to a lot of people. She's considered to be one of the first sex symbols of Hollywood. She's an old school Hollywood movie star. A lot of people look up to her. Even to this day, people are still modeling her, as you can say, pinup look that she did back in like the 30s and the 40s and things of that nature. If you're going into this kind of looking for a more sympathetic view of Marilyn Monroe, I think this is definitely the film for you to watch. However, there's one specific issue that I have, which we'll talk about towards the end. But let's just start off. What do you guys think about Ana de Armas's performance in the film as Marilyn Monroe? Did you buy it? Did you have issues with it? I'll start with Rob, because obviously this is the film that he's been looking forward to all year, so I might as well start with him.
Yeah, I loved this movie. I loved Ana de Armas in it. I thought she was fantastic. I should say this: I have no relationship to Marilyn Monroe. In fact, I have a negative view of her because of third wave feminists taking her sort of, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best bullshit entitlement.
Yeah.
So I mean, and again, I don't know if she even said that. I don't know in context she meant it in. I don't know. I don't really care. Marilyn Monroe, the real person, was kind of a pig. Okay, as it like in terms of hygiene and just so all of that aside, what I love about this performance was it's completely sympathetic in a very human way. And it's very rare that movies actually do this. They spend this mountain of time examining someone's life from this perspective, and it's artistically indulgent. It's messy. To say the least, but it's such a great artistic statement, I felt, by Andrew Dominik, and Ana de Armas just gives a knockout performance, even to the point where she starts to annoy me towards the end with her daddy pleadings.
Yes.
But all in all, I just thought it was a really, really excellent performance.
Agree or disagree, Rick?
Well, I agree on Ana de Armas. She is absolutely sensational. You can get those scenes where she recreates her performances in All About Eve and Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Don't Bother to Knock, Niagara, and you think they not only edit it so where she blends in so well, but you do forget that it is Ana de Armas, and you could accept that this is Marilyn Monroe in the movies. And then I think the scene, if there is an Oscar clip, and I think that I don't know if she'll win, but I certainly think a nomination is, she's got a good shot at it. I think the scene where she's auditioning for Don't Bother to Knock, because she's playing two parts. She's playing Marilyn Monroe, and then she's playing the character that Marilyn Monroe's playing in Don't Bother to Knock. So you've got two performances going on, and she is just perfect in it. She's just beautiful and heartbreaking and moving, and you kind of get slowly wrapped into that dual performance. She was wonderful. Now, I would say that I did have some issues with it. I thought it was a little too artsy for my taste. It's definitely far too long for my taste. Although I did manage to see the original miniseries, and I think the miniseries is maybe 10 minutes longer than this, but that was spread over 2 nights. That was not one long sitting. And you talk about menage a trois. This one was very artfully shot, but
Yes.
as for Ana de Armas, I think she was just spot on. I didn't have any issues. I mean, I didn't see an accent or hear an accent. I heard Monroe. I mean, she's maybe leans more toward the breathy idea of how Marilyn Monroe speaks, because she was not that way all the time. But in terms of her performance, it was great. It's her performance is one of the best I've seen this year. The movie, I have some issues with it, especially the length, but other parts were quite good. I thought the transitions between color and black and white worked well. The recreations of her scenes, for people who have seen her in All About Eve or Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, you think this is a spot on. It's not an impersonation, it's not an imitation, it's a performance. So those were very good. And by the way, and I think I've mentioned this to Rob, I think he has seen Niagara and Don't Bother to Knock.
I
Those are
haven't seen Don't Bother to Knock, but I've seen
Yeah.
Niagara.
Those are great pre-actor studio performances. So she definitely was very capable of being a good dramatic actress. Ana de Armas was great. I loved her. The movie, not so much, but Ana de Armas, I thought she was just great, sensational. I loved her.
Yeah, so this is a film that really takes I'd say the character of Marilyn Monroe, but the person of Marilyn Monroe, and really makes you sympathize with her in a way that no one really has, I guess, up to this point. Now, one argument you could say is that it kind of borders towards like misery porn and whatnot, because throughout the entire like life story of this film, it's like she goes from being like abused from her mother to almost pretty much almost being killed by her crazy psychotic mother, to the fact she's had this like permanent trauma of her father abandoning her when she was a little girl, and she wants to be like a star, and then she gets to Hollywood. And this is old Hollywood here. We're talking about like the 40s and the 50s here, and even back then that casting couch was still very much open, because like right out of the bat, like her first audition, and then I think she gets like raped by a producer. So there's a lot of moments in this film where you just gotta go like, damn, like she really did just have like a terribly hard life. And you're talking about a woman here who died in her mid 30s. Maybe she died of drug overdose. Maybe there was some extracurricular activities going there, but we're not going to give life to any of the conspiracy theories for this one. But yeah, just looking at the way that the story was being told, it's like all of these events in her life, it's just like it's kind of impossible not to sympathize. That doesn't mean you have to give a pass to all of her decisions, because let's be honest, she made plenty of bad decisions in her life, and the film doesn't try to like sway away from that. But given the way that she was raised and the ways that she was just treated by everyone around her, it's like she was someone who was desperately just wanting to be belonged and loved by somebody, and instead she pretty much got used by everybody in her life, especially in the business like Hollywood, which even back then was pretty ruthless. What did you guys think of just kind of like the way that they portrayed her in this film, and kind of like the story and the tone that was set here?
Well, I mean, she's an orphan, and from it shows her as a little girl. From her, like, and by the way, that opening scene with the fire and her mother driving, it's the 1930s in Hollywood, and it just looks amazing. But it's also incredibly haunting as like to experience that as a child. She gets attempts to get drowned by her own mother, who basically says that her only value was, her husband that left her, the only value was before, she had her child, and now the child ruined basically her relationship with her husband. So this is the mindset of this little girl growing up. And so of course she uses whatever she thinks she can to get love. And of course it's been the worst possible place you could be, Hollywood. So I mean, to me, it's an incredibly like heartbreaking profile that isn't okay. I'm gonna say something that probably you guys will disagree with. I don't think that this is strictly a victim narrative. Okay. Yes, Marilyn Monroe was a victim of a lot of different things, circumstance, and where she put herself. But I don't think that the movie necessarily, it's like she kept going on this track because it was the only thing that she knew. And so she didn't even think of it to be a victim. That didn't exist. It was just, this is my life. I'm going to live it. And, and she was a star, but she was incredibly, she was manipulated and she was used, and there's really no way around it. It's an incredibly sad story.
Well, yeah, I'm going to slightly disagree. She did seem to be kind of a victim, though she did make some poor choices herself, and sometimes she was able to have inner strength, such as when I guess the fantasy sequence where when she's taken to have that abortion, she was almost like, no, I don't want this. I changed my mind. But I think one thing that we need to mention is that this is not a biopic. This is based on a novel. It's a fictionalized story.
Yeah.
And I think people who are upset about this and think that this is the Marilyn Monroe story, it's not. It's a novel. It's a fictionalized version of her life. I mean, that's why we don't get names mentioned. The producer was Mr. Z. That's probably Daryl Zanuck, the head of Fox. The ex-athlete, the playwright. We know who these people are. We just don't name them. But no, I don't. Yeah, I don't quite agree that it's that it was a victim type. She did seem to be very victimized. I mean, she was
Yes.
essentially.
I mean, the movie does not lament about woe is me like Moonlight. It's not a Moonlight victim narrative, and that's kind of what I mean. It's like it's showing her life. She was victimized. I'm not saying that she wasn't, but just that the movie doesn't rest on this sort of victimization.
That's a fair point.
Here's a film like this movie presents a lot of themes that obviously didn't bode well with progressive critics, and we'll get to that in a little more detail tomorrow night. But I was going to bring up a couple of points here. Is that obviously this is a movie that's really highlighting really the bad side of Hollywood, even back in these days. Like we think of what Hollywood is now in the whole like Me Too era, but it's like this has been the culture of Hollywood for decades, right? Like the names and the people in power changed, but I mean this is essentially what they've been doing for many years. And you just go to like this really doesn't pull any punches with just how bad and how toxic Hollywood was, especially for a girl in like her environment, where the things she had to deal with at auditions and the people around her who were really only taking advantage of her because of her fictional name, her fictional persona that she made up for herself. And that was kind of like her way of like protecting herself in the industry. But at the same time, it was also her downfall as well. And I say everyone around her used her, to her husbands, to the people who were on set. It's just like, they're just really just showing just the negative side of Hollywood, because this is another thing, talk about open secrets. Hollywood loves broken people. Whether you come from a broken home or you don't come from like the best background, and you go to Hollywood with this doughy eye view of, oh, I'm going to be a star, I'm going to be a celebrity, and my name is going to be in the lights, and this idea of what being a celebrity is, and then you get a taste of the reality of what being a celebrity means, and you really just like lose yourself as a person. You just become this miserable, drug addicted wreck, and that's the type of people who they love to showcase, love to bring in, people who they can mold, intentionally damage for their own goods. And this one, I felt like, even though this is like a Netflix movie, this one definitely did not pull any punches of the way that Hollywood even back then was portrayed. And what would your kind of portrayal of how the film handled this, handled the industry in this portrayal?
Well, I think sometimes that, like, I think the critical backlash, now maybe this is me just projecting, so I'm completely open to that possibility. But the critics who so vehemently said, don't even go see this, it's almost like they don't like the fact that Hollywood is depicted as the greatest sort of victimizer of Marilyn Monroe. Because it's true, Hollywood loves broken people because they're easier to control. They don't have anywhere to go. And the time we're talking about was the studio system. The stars, especially ones that they didn't have top billing yet, they were property basically. And so, and I know maybe I'm being a little colorful with that language, but they had a lot of control over their lives and decisions. And so it was not a pleasant place for Monroe to be. And just to sort of talk about this based on a novel, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on a novel. It's not based on reality. And it's Andrew Dominic's artistic vision that we're seeing. And so I like that. I like that you're not rigidly locked in to, events and plot, because it's a character driven narrative. It's about what she experienced through the eyes of Andrew Dominic through this novel. So I like that.
Well, I don't know if the critics really are being. Well, I don't know what they're saying. I haven't seen it. All I know is that maybe they think that they're defending Marilyn Monroe because they think that this is very exploitative, but she herself was unfortunately exploited by a lot of people. And even I guess the most positive reaction, which is with the playwright, he at the beginning was very dismissive when he was like, "You know Chekhov?" Because he thought she was just another dumb blonde. And no, Monroe was actually very intelligent. She did write poetry, and she did converse with intellectuals. If I think, if I'm not mistaken, Truman Capote based Holly Golightly on Monroe when she was in New York for her actor studio training. So she was by no means a dumb blonde. I mean, she just played one, and I think that's why they have this reaction, because they want to defend her, then say no, she was not like that, and well, maybe she wasn't like that, and she certainly was aware of that. There's stories where she advises other up and comers about how predatory the men are in the industry. But no, I don't know why they would look at that, because again, this is a fictionalized story. It's based on real people, but it's a fictionalized story. So they should not get so hung up on the details.
Yeah, the movie is about exploitation. It is not exploitative. That's complete nonsense. It's just like a depiction of exploitation is not an endorsement of it. Just like a depiction of misogyny, murder, rape, whatever. It's like, it's not endorsing it. It's literally showing you from start to finish for Marilyn Monroe what she went through. If anything, it's incredibly sympathetic to her experience. And that's, to me, it's like you're completely missing the point. This movie, and I know this is hilarious, but this movie is actually incredibly feminist, because it's giving you a front row seat to what actual misogyny was. We are miles away from this, by the way, now. I'm not saying Hollywood isn't still misogynistic. It absolutely is. But the way they talk now, it's complete. It's like they have to talk this way because of what women went through at the time. So it's like the whole argument that it's a insult against Marilyn Monroe. It's like, no, it's trying to give you some insight to what she experienced.
And just real quick to follow that up is that, people criticize this film for being exploitative and sexist and dehumanizing. It's like, yeah, that's what Hollywood is. Like, keep in mind, a lot of you Me Too supporters have also been saying that for the last few years as well. So why are you guys particularly complaining about a movie that portrays Hollywood in that light, even though we're talking about Hollywood of the past, not currently? And I think a lot of people have a problem with, let's be honest here, this whole issue of the quote-unquote male gaze. Now, let's talk about this with Rob. This is an NC-17 movie. So, yes, you do see Ana de Armas topless a lot in numerous scenes throughout this movie. What I don't understand here is that these people are upset because, Ana de Armas is nude in this movie, but that might be attractive to men. So because of that, we're upset that we're going to now criticize the movie for being exploitative, sexist, dehumanizing, all the things that we say Hollywood is, even though the film is essentially portraying that by using Anna as a vehicle, by saying that, look at how dehumanizing and sexist this industry was towards the character of Marilyn Monroe specifically. So it's like they're trying to have these two conflicting arguments here because somehow they're upset about the nudity of the film. Well, this is not like, you know, Bros, as we talked about earlier, where there's just pointless sex scenes for the case of trying to normalize pointless sex scenes. There's actually a bigger point and a bigger story that's being told here, which is why you have certain these scenes. Like I said, we're talking about Marilyn Monroe, so it's not like you can really have a film like that without nudity, given the character that we're talking about here. But what is just kind of your thoughts on the criticisms that's being levied on this film? Because I guess they're just complaining that maybe Anna's too hot to be in a role like this. And this, you know, her being in an NC-17 role did attract you to it. So what is your grounds on their complaints?
But it's kind of what I'm saying from what I just finished saying was the view of, you know, Marilyn Monroe is, you know, she's getting an abortion and she's having sex and all, you know, these intimate moments of her life are being exploited for a dramatic movie. And it's like, yeah, it's called art. It's okay, guys. It's okay. This is what critics used to do, guys. We used to talk about real movies that challenged us and took us to new places and made us feel things that maybe were a little uncomfortable. And not like Bros, that fucking bullshit, but an actual, like, trying to say, hey, what was it like for this woman to experience all this? So, like, to me, it's an empty criticism by these people. It's like you're telling people not to watch something because of what you're afraid they're gonna feel. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, let people experience it for themselves. And it's based on a novel, fictional characters. It's gonna be okay.
Real quick before I let Rick respond to that, we talked about this with the progressive ideology. The thing that they seem to fear the most is how other people are going to perceive acts of fiction, essentially, right? So just like you said, they're afraid that audiences are going to see this and perceive this another way, which goes against their own ideology. And since because it goes against their own ideology, they pretty much want to trash it and bury it because they don't want anyone to see it and come to that realization that, hey, maybe a lot of these things that you guys have been endorsing over the years isn't exactly the most healthiest thing in the world as well. But Rick, go on with the whole complaints about the movie and the whole NC-17 rating about the film.
Well, first, I would say that my concern would be that people would think this is the Marilyn Monroe story. That instead of it being a fictionalized version of her life, and the NC-17 rating, I wasn't bothered by Ana de Armas being topless or nude because, I mean, Marilyn Monroe posed for that nude photo calendar, and she did a nude swim in something that was something's got what was it called, Something's Got to Give, which was her uncompleted film. So it's not it shouldn't be shocking. I think I was more upset by her scene with the president, and I thought that was a little too graphic for my taste. I was very uncomfortable with that. So I if you were to say that bothered you, then I would agree with you. But if you're bothered by her being topless a lot, I mean that's something that she was. I mean, in her life, private life, and in in some of her actions. Now, I should say for the record that the last NC-17 movie I saw was Showgirls, and I think this is this is better than Showgirls. I'll admit to that.
I actually have a history of just since I've loved movies since I was a kid and always seeked them out from when I was little to now. I actually have a history of seeking out NC-17 movies. To the point where I the last two I saw in a theater. So it was Shame with Michael Fassbender and Blue Valentine with Ryan Gosling, Michelle Williams. And I've always liked artistic movies. I like being challenged. I like saying, hey, can I watch a movie about this thing and kind of get through it? And it's uncomfortable, it's disturbing, and whatever. And Blonde is hard to watch at moments. I'll say that JFK scene is rough. It's just like, okay, we're in for the ride, So
like you think it's gonna cut at some point, but it just keeps going.
Yeah, and I will say this: I don't want to spoil anything, but it's hard to not. I can't defend the talking fetus scene. Okay, guys, I can't do it. I'm not going to try to do it. it's about Monroe's psychology and what she's feeling, and that that taps into so. And it's heartbreaking when she loses those children and everything, and so and by the way, Planned Parenthood, what the fuck is wrong with you? Anyway, I'm not gonna get it, but it's like there are things in it that make it messy, that make it a bit incoherent. It is an artistic expression to a nth degree. It's really Andrew Dominik's vision without any commercial sensibility. But I really loved it. I loved so much of like the artistic sequences, the cinematic sequences. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there are issues, and the critics on it have been complete morons, but I think it's mostly worth checking out.
I think something that does bother some of these other critics is that she recognizes it as a person. I mean, at the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes premiere, she says to herself, did I, something like, did I kill my baby for this? Or, is this the reason I killed my baby?
Yeah.
So she takes a different view than perhaps some of the critics who disagree with that on the abortion issue. I can't say. I have no way of looking into their heart. This is how Monroe, the fictional character, perceives that, and it's not an open secret that she wanted children, and she did get pregnant multiple times, but could never carry to term, and that was always a traumatic experience for her. So that, I think, that was probably closer to life. I don't know why the critics seem to think that this is exploitative. I mean, when the industry itself is exploitative of women, and if this is a reflection of it, I mean, I personally found it a little, like I said, a little too long and a little too artsy for my taste. So those were some of my issues with it. It's like I actually could have done with that, was the first almost 20 minutes of her childhood. I thought that could have been trimmed or severely cut. We didn't need to have so much. And maybe the idea of the drowning was a little traumatic or the attempted drowning was a little traumatic for some of the viewers. But no, I think that they need to focus on the fact that this is a fictionalized story of her life. It's not it's not a biopic. You have to remember, it's not a biopic.
Well, it's funny how in the minds of these same critics, they're uncomfortable with the nudity of Ana de Armas in this film, but they expect regular audiences to be comfortable with the nudity in films like Bros, which I suppose is a direct hypocrisy there. Not only that, but we'll talk about this in more detail tomorrow, because I do want to stretch out this conversation a little bit, but I will touch up on it here. Is that one of the biggest themes with this film that a lot of the more progressive critics have a problem with is the fact that in the movie, there's multiple times where she was pregnant with a child, ended up losing the child due to either trauma or being forced to get an abortion that she didn't want to get, right? And this has a big effect on her emotionally throughout the film, because she feels like that she essentially sacrificed her child in order to obtain or upkeep her career in Hollywood. And because this is looked at as a negative in the film, you have groups like Planned Parenthood who are going out there and saying that, this is a quote unquote pro-life film. And people are making this argument now, this is a pro-life movie, which is probably why it has such a low rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm just going to let you know that right now, because if there's any inkling that there's a pro-life tone in any movie, especially on Rotten Tomatoes, all of those progressive critics are going to downvote. And that's probably what happened here, because you have a woman in this film who got an abortion, and she's not going out there shouting and celebrating that she got an abortion, that she's proud that she got rid of her baby. Like, no, in this film, like that whole her losing her baby and the matter that she did traumatized her even further, even worse than the issues with her father, the issues with her mother, because she really wanted to like you said, she really wanted to be a mother, and being in the industry that she was in wouldn't allow her to do that. And that was like a big trauma point for her in a movie that's all about the trauma that she suffered throughout her life. So the fact that people are complaining about this thing seems more about them than it does about the film. But what did you think about the whole, I guess, quote unquote, pro-life aspect of this movie, Rob?
Well, so much of this movie is about identity. Okay, it's about this woman who doesn't know who she is. She's, she became Marilyn Monroe, but that's not who she is. And having a child is a sense of identity. It's saying I'm a mother to this child. And by the way, you fucking pro-choice hypocrites, isn't that part of the thing? The choice? So she wants to be a mother. So that's a wonderful thing. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Sorry, it's like it doesn't you're contradicting what you say you believe. So it's just like, again, and I don't want to make this about politics, but it's like this is a person. Yeah, I get it, right? But
just real quick, like when I was watching this movie and I saw the whole scene, and they do like the little like animation with like the baby, like when it's in like the early stages of pregnancy and whatnot. I'm thinking to myself, oh, there's going to be a lot of people on the left that aren't going to like this part of the film, and I think that's why this film ended up getting so much lower reviews than it probably deserves, is because of that whole thing alone. But yeah, continue your point.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I just want to finish this up, like. Just based on the filmmaking technique and all that alone, it's like it should be much higher than, I think it's like 33%. It's something really putrid right now, but it's basically what Bro should be. But no, and I've stated for years that that art is not political; it's personal. It's told from a personal point of view, experiencing something, that is true to that artist, and that's what he wanted to show. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing pro-life or pro-choice about it, in my view. It's just what one woman was dealing with in terms of who she was and what she was trying to become in the sense of being a mother.
Yes, people who judge that don't seem to understand that this is her or the character of Marilyn Monroe's perception that she wanted to be a mother, with the forced abortion and with the miscarriage. Those would be traumatic to a woman who wants to be a mother. It's irrelevant where I stand on abortion myself. It's what the character it wants and what the character believes. So why are they getting up? I don't understand why they would relate their own views on this. It's not about their views. It's not about my views on abortion. It's about what the character thinks. And if the character wants to be a mother and has a forced abortion where she keeps saying, I changed my mind, I changed my mind, I changed my mind, or when she loses the baby through a miscarriage where she falls, those would be traumatic experiences for her. It's not about what I as a viewer think about abortion one way or the other. It's about what the character believes. So I'm not understanding why. Now there are things that I probably would there are things that I did not like about this movie, which is why I gave it a mildly negative view. But it has nothing to do with the abortion or anything like that. It has to do with length. It has to do with maybe a little too artistic a view, but that's just my own perspective. But that's judging it on what I saw, not on what I think about abortion one way or the other.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, well, we're just not going to mention that, and we'll just move on to our next topic.
I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah. Okay. So look, that whole portion of the film is just like, there's people out there that just need to inject their own politics into the state of the fact. Like I said, they only want to acknowledge that this woman was traumatized by her own abortion, because like I said, that's not the narrative that they want to portray in 2022. It says more about them than it says about the film. My biggest problem with the film, I think all you guys might agree with this one here, is the length. This is a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes long, and I don't feel like it needed to be that long. When you get towards like the third act of this movie, it really starts to drag on to the point where it's like, okay, it's almost like one of those scenes where it's like, look, we get it. Like this woman's life was hard. She suffered a lot, and it just keeps going and going and going to the point where it's like, look, I'm almost at the point of just tapping out of this film because it's so negative in that sense. I don't have a problem with like the artistic decisions. I think that, the acting is very, very good here. I think that a lot of the cinematography is very good. The way things are shot, especially when they're actually like modeling Anna de Armas's performance juxtaposed to some of her Marilyn Monroe's actual performances in older Hollywood films. I thought that stuff was very, very well done. I just think that this film arguably should have wrapped up maybe about 20 minutes earlier than it did, instead of just going like the full line of the road. Let's just go ahead and just gotta give you guys final thoughts of this movie. I'm conflicted between two different ratings that I want to give this film, but maybe if I hear you guys, I might change my mind. So, Rob, what is kind of your final thoughts in regarding this film goes?
Yeah, and I think it's connected to that sense of identity with Marilyn Monroe. It's just constantly looking for herself. Who am I? You know, I became Marilyn Monroe. I named Norma Jean, but my parents gave up on me. You know, who am I? You know, I think that from an artistic point of view, it is shot from the perspective that she's this one we all saw, or at least in the terms of pop culture, see. And she was revered and celebrated, but nobody knew who she was. Nobody really saw what she went through, what she dealt with. And from an artistic point of view, it's almost like she's right there and we want to help her. We want to like reach through and help her, but we can't. And it's a kind of a horror movie that we just keep watching. It's beautiful. It's glamorous, but God, is it sad. God, is it painful to kind of watch her go through all this.
Especially
and a lot of people,
what her fate is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and a lot of people might say, I don't need to do that. I don't want to put myself through that. And that's fine. But I love the investment that Andrew Dominic made with this movie and said, this is what I'm doing. 2 hours and 46 minutes of this woman's life. And that last hour is long. It does drag out. You know, at that point, even Marilyn Monroe's sort of like deterioration is annoying a little bit, you know, because someone in need at the end of their rope is sad, you know. So, and there were a few moments of humor. There were laughs, like her cracking jokes with the wardrobe ladies and the makeup ladies. Like that stuff was good. We probably could have had more of that. Adrian Brody, who plays Arthur Miller, you know, I kind of would like to see more of him, but overall, I still think it's a really solid movie. I do think it drags out, but I had a pit in the top of my stomach for a good 2 hours watching this. So
yeah.
I even though it has flaws, it's messy. It has the talking fetus. It's a little long. I still gave it a 4 out of 5 because it's still the best movie I've seen this year in terms of the places it goes and the profile it etches out. So yeah, I really liked it, even though it has issues.
All right. Well, I'm not as enthusiastic as Rob is, but it has nothing to do with Ana de Armas, because she is she is just pitch perfect in my opinion for this role. I just loved seeing her on the screen. For me, it just did drag, and as it's getting close to the end, I was like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? Please just let it end sometime. I was literally moving I was moving to see where it actually would start rolling the credits and see how far off I was from that, because I was just getting tired of it. No, I did like Adrian Brody as not Arthur Miller.
Yeah, totally not Arthur Miller.
Yeah, not Arthur Miller. I thought was it Bobby Cannavale did a pretty decent job as not Joe DiMaggio, but it's interesting that we see so much of her torture. We're spared him beating her after she films a 7-year itch scene. Yeah. So I thought that was curious. The menage a trois between her, Charlie Chaplin Jr., and Eddie Robinson Jr. was a little too artistic for my taste. Not that I wanted it to be graphic, but all those kind of almost mirror-like effects and all that lush music was just a little too much for me. So because of that, it's a mildly negative. I would probably give it a 2.5, maybe a 3, but those were my main issues. And I don't think I don't think that the fetus itself was talking. I think she was imagining what the baby would sound like.
No, and that's what I
But
mean.
I did not see the lips actually move. So it wasn't an
Yes.
animatronic figure, but
You knew what I meant. God,
you know,
excuse me. That's right. That's right. There are people on here that might be offended by that. I'm sorry.
well, no, I was gonna say I kind of sense what you were saying, but the impression that you left is that the fetus itself was literally talking or moving its lips, and I don't want people to think that if they haven't seen it. She is imagining. I mean, we get to see the shots of the fetus. I could
Yes.
have done without the shots of what looked like the abortion about to go on. I thought
Yeah.
that was a little too much. So yeah, I agree with you that it is messy. So it's a mildly negative, but definitely a 4 or 5 out of 5 for Ana de Armas. So I thought she was absolutely perfect, and I hope that she does get a nomination, even though apparently it's already in the bag for Kate Blanchett. So there you
Well,
go.
she deserves it more than Viola Davis for The Woman King. So.
Or maybe Angela Bassett for Wakanda Forever.
See, this is why I have to champion things like Blonde, because if I didn't, that's all we would talk about. And it's like, this is, by the way, one of my favorite critics of all time, Pauline Kael. She would do this, and she would do it to be kind of a contrarian, but also because she believed in the movie. And it's like, look, I miss when critics used to do that, when they would be like, no, fuck public consensus. This is what you should be watching.
Well, so here's my wrap up of this film is that I love Ana de Armas in this film. I think the film set out to, like I said, humanize and make you sympathize with Marilyn Monroe's character, which I think it achieved greatly. There was a lot of great cinematography about the film. There was a lot of great camera work about the film. The acting in this film is very, very stellar. The only negative I can really pull out about this movie is just the length, and I think it just runs out of steam towards the third act. But the more I'm thinking about it, there's more positives about this film that I could point out than the negatives outside that one omission. And like you said, this is one of the films where you can tell people really put effort into it, really put, thought, really put a lot of stuff that we don't see in movies like The Woman King and Don't Worry, Darling and fucking Bros and all the other crap that we've seen over the last few months. So because of that, I have to give this a slightly higher review for this film. I think I'm going to be with Rob. I think I'm going to settle with about a 4 out of 5 for this movie. I definitely recommend it for those of you who haven't seen it yet. And like I said, we're talking about Netflix here. Let's be honest. Netflix is not known for their quality of movies. So this is one of the few movies on their platform that's actually worth a watch. This is just a very, very, very good film for me. I don't know if it's a top 10 film. I don't know if I go that far just yet. Maybe be on like the very bottom of the list, and who knows, by the end of the year it might not even be there at all. But it's definitely one of the better movies that have come out of this year that I've seen, and I just got to give kudos to a lot of people around this film. They did a great job with it. Like I said, my only point was by the third act, I was like, okay, look, we got to wrap this up, G. That was my biggest complaint about the whole film. But outside of the runtime, I mean, everything else, I think they pretty much accomplished what they set out to produce with this film. So I got to give them credit as far as that goes. So yeah, I go about a 4 out of 5 on this movie.
And again, it's interesting because I did see the miniseries, and it's almost the same length. Although the miniseries is a little more traditionally structured in that it seems more like a standard biopic than this one. It wasn't as artsy. You had a lot of people in the miniseries talking directly into the camera, including Monroe, which you didn't have here. So maybe if it had been a little more standard, but yeah, I think we all agree that the length is an issue. It just seems to kind of go on. It's like
and on.
And on.
I'll say this to what Cassie said. Every once in a while, Netflix will come out with something good. But yeah, no, they didn't want to release this. I don't know if you guys have remembered any of like the Variety, Netflix had this and they were like, we technically have to release it and we don't want to because it's NC-17 and it's graphic and
Yeah, why release that when you can release the fucking what is it, the Monsters, or you can release Resident Evil or Cowboy Bebop and all the other bullshit that's on your fucking network.
Or the Gray Man.
But let's shelf this movie. Let's make it so people can't see this shit. Like,
Yeah,
great job.
I'd sooner see this than the Gray Man or the Power of the Dog, which I found
terrible,
which is a kind of movie that bros would dislike. Now that we bring that in.
Yeah, well,
fuck Cowboys.
How about that? I mean, my top 5 worst of the year, and I know we'll do our year-end list when we get to later on in the year. My top 5 worst movies right now: Bros number 1, Not Okay number 2, Bodies number 3, number 4 is Marry Me, and then number 5 is Scream. Those are my top 10. Fuck all these films that I've seen.
I don't know how you rank the worst of the year, because I'll be honest with you right now. There's a movie, I don't know if it'll make worst of the year, but I thought it was terrible when I saw it. Was Father Stew. Like that, movie, and I know that movie's big in like the conservative and like
Catholic,
right, and that's fine. I thought the movie was a piece of crap. Like the whole Mark Wahlberg's a bad, like he's leading a shitty life, and then he turns it around. But it's like a disease anyway. It's weird, it's like it's like okay,
I think it's based on like the real story of someone. I think I even reviewed it for Bounding. I don't think I gave it like a 3 out of 5. It wasn't like one of my top ones. Like it won't make any of my list this year, but I thought it was good enough.
Well, I'm just not going to see it because I do have a thing where I don't watch any Mel Gibson movies unless I absolutely have to. But I would sooner watch Marry Me than The Gray Man.
No, I wouldn't. I don't understand. Like, first of all, The Gray Man, I didn't even like The Gray Man. I think I gave it like a 2.5 out of 5 when I saw it. But it's like it was nowhere near the worst crap that I've seen some crap, man. Like I tell people this all the time. Like I get some few nuggets out of these every year. Like I'll see a movie like Pearl, which I have to dig through like 10 shitty movies just to get to a film like Pearl, but I see a whole lot of shitty movies, and The Gray Man doesn't even register as like on my top 25 worst movies that I've seen this year if I have to count it.
Yeah. The Gray Man is just like a bad action movie, which Netflix makes a bunch of. It's just they spent, what was it, 100 million on this one? 200 million? Something ridiculous.
What was it, The Gray Man?
Yeah.
Yeah, they spent like at least $250 million on that movie just on production.
That's right.
Yeah.
No. I mean, I'm more forgiving about Marry Me, but no. But give credit to Bros that it made me think whether The Gray Man can hold on to my worst.
And I say this, and maybe that's just me being a little bit more lenient than others. They Them is a far better movie than Bros. I would recommend They Them 10 times out of 10 if I ever watch Bros. I'm never gonna watch this film ever again. But that's just a giant hook of crap. That's
when Billy Eichner is singing his best original song at the Oscars, I hope you remember that. And when he's nominated for best original screenplay, I hope you remember that.
Only if Anna de Armas gets to sing "Everybody Needs a Dad, Daddy," which I'm pretty sure is not an original song, but I would love for that.
Well, that song came from, I think, one of her early films, "Ladies of Burlesque," and she also did cover "My Heart Belongs to Daddy" from "Let's Make Love." So I mean, I'm hoping Ana de Armas is not forgotten, even though it's already in the bag for Cate Blanchett, apparently. Even though, I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but apparently she's already won it.
Yeah, isn't that some movie called Tar that's coming out next week?
So you guys are going to hate me, but I'm going to go see that movie because it's directed by a guy named Todd Field, who like disappeared for 20 years, who did 2 movies in like the early 2000s, In the Bedroom and Little Children, which if you guys haven't seen Little Children, that's another movie where it's just like just fucked up shit going on in suburbia, but it's really good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot to go off of. So just in case you guys don't know, next week we'll be talking about the film Amsterdam, because I think there's going to be a lot of good conversation about that one, especially with Rob is pointing out there seems to be a lot of hate towards David O. Russell films over the last few years. And this one has a big cast, but like I said, the reviews are pretty down on it, which like I said, not really saying much because all the critics loved Bros and gave that one 91%. So the fact that they're shitting on this movie means that, hey, maybe it's actually pretty good. We just don't know it yet. So
Well, I know my friend is enthusiastic about Amsterdam. I think he's enthusiastic about Amsterdam. So, if that's the one we're going to watch, all right.
I kind of want to see it, yeah. But I'm partial to Christian Bale and David O. Russell in general.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that it's going to make more than $20 million, and that's really going to piss off like the box office people because they're like, none of the other movies that they championed and celebrated made shit, and this one's on track to make like 25.
I'm just curious to see where Bros is next week in terms of box office.
I mean, they're not even halfway through their production budget in the first week. So I don't see where this push for going to see, especially now that Billy Eichner's running his mouth, making things worse on Twitter. I don't see how they're going to make that budget back. I just don't see how it's going to happen. But like I said, next week we'll be talking about the film Amsterdam, but then in 2 weeks, our good buddy Cult Classic Cage and maybe even Orange Hat, we'll see if Orange Hat will join us. We're going to be talking about the film Halloween Ends, the so-called final Halloween movie, which we all know is not going to be the final Halloween movie. They'll probably make another one in 10 years, but that's what they're claiming it is going to be. So that's going to be in 2 weeks. But until then, let me go ahead and give you guys a chance to promote your stuff before we head out of here and let you know what we got coming up on the channel during the week. So let's start off with Rick. Where can everyone find you, Rick? I know you just posted a review of something on your site, so tell them what the site is.
It is Rick's Texan Reviews. You could also find it at Rick's Cafe Texan. I think I posted my Bros review, which took me far too long to write. I'm just again still just trying to clear out my DVR, watch some DVDs, and I'll hopefully have a review of the TV miniseries of Blonde and do a little comparison between that and the Netflix movie. So hopefully I'll be publishing that pretty soon. Other than that, now with my life more open, I mean, there's not much. My life is pretty dull. What can I say?
Boo, lame.
That's all. I mean, my life. I mean, what else can I say?
Padres are in the playoffs. Aren't you excited that
Well, I'm not. I'm not. I'm happy for them, but I'm not. Pinning my hopes because we've got even if we do well against the Mets, we still got Atlanta and Los Angeles. We've got Los Angeles and then Atlanta if we go. So I'm trying to accept that maybe we won't go far, but it's I'm happy for them, and I look forward to more baseball in the future. But maybe I'll actually watch a football game.
I'll say this: I did go to a Braves game last Saturday night, and I'm starting to believe that maybe we'll go back to back this year. I'm not riding my hitch to it just yet, but I think there's a shot.
No, but if you did the tomahawk chop, you're a horrible person. I hope you know.
Oh yeah, I did that all night long. I didn't give a shit. And now let's go over to our good friend Rob. What do you got coming up, Rob?
Yeah, I've actually been a Braves fan since 1996. So I've been a long-suffering, oh, hey, we're going to win the division again and losing the playoffs. So last year was really nice, and I love that they just swept the Mets to get a 2-game lead with like 3 to play. So Braves are doing great. I am behind on a couple of reviews right now, including Blonde, which will be out later this week. And I'm watching I'm watching a lot of horror movies this month. At least one every day. So, what is it? Sleepaway Camp, all Halloween movies, Universal Monster movies. I have a lot on tap for this month, so looking forward to it.
All right, then let's switch this back over to me. Let you guys know what we got coming up this week. So there's been a lot of activity on the site. If you've been through my main site society review, especially over the last 24 hours, I've probably waterboarded you with content over the last couple of days. I got a review for Smile that's up. The Pearl review is up. The Bros review, which is blowing up on the site right now. I think we're at 4,000 views on that one alone. I don't know who's retweeting it on Twitter, but getting a lot of traffic coming in from Twitter right now. So I thank you guys for that one. That one's doing pretty big numbers for us. So go watch us. I mean, go read Society Reviews for all the good content we got coming on there. As far as the YouTube channel goes, tomorrow night, episode 18 of the Barroom Podcast, we're going to be talking about Billy Eichner's Twitter rant while he's blaming heterosexual people for his gay rom-com movie bombing at the box office. We're going to be talking about that tomorrow. Letterboxd took down my review of Bros again. So this is the third time they've censored me for having bad opinions on Letterboxd. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Planned Parenthood is coming out against the Netflix Blonde movie because of its pro-life themes. They're literally attacking the film for being pro-life because Marilyn Monroe didn't celebrate her abortion. So we'll talk about that. We will talk about the Atlanta Braves. Democrats are pushing for the Braves to change their name. They're trying to get rid of the Braves, which is not going to go over very well in Georgia. I can tell you that much right now, especially in an election year. So you may want to back off of that shit. And then we'll also talk about California making it illegal for rappers to snitch on themselves. So as you know, a lot of rappers have a problem with committing to crimes on their rap songs. Now California has made it so that you can't use rap lyrics in a court of law because people can't stop bragging about the violent crimes that they commit. So that's going to be tomorrow night on the Barroom Podcast. And then on Wednesday night, myself and Nerdigans are going to be back. We're going to be talking about Digimon Tamers for our Retro Wave reviews. We're going to be talking about the third season and the greatest season of Digimon. So all you guys nerds out there, all you culture fans that love talk about just useless crap on that show. But I like the show, and it's doing pretty well. Retro Wave reviews. We'll do that one. And then, of course, next Monday night, we'll be back here talk about the film Amsterdam with Christian Bale, with John Washington, with Margot Robbie, Chris Rock, a whole bunch of people are in that one. So a lot of things coming up. I'm pretty sure we got a couple things coming up with Bounding in the Comics as well. As a matter of fact, I think I'm not sure Spencer can confirm this, but right now, if you go on Bounding in the Comics, there's 2 reviews that I posted that are both 0 out of 10 reviews. One is She-Hulk and the other is Bros. I think I'm responsible for the first ever double goose egg review on the front page of Bounding in the Comics. So I'm not sure if he can confirm that or not, but yeah, go watch those reviews. You'll have a good time reading those. And to everyone who joined us in the chat tonight, Duke Nukem, who's always with us every night. Cassie, who joined us in the chat. Of course, Spencer, who's always editing stuff and listening to us talk about stuff. And yes, Cassie, we are going to be doing Digimon again, so deal with it. And then, both reviews are up. And double first level bagels, double bit. No, this isn't the first level bagels. I gave one of the episodes of She-Hulk a bagel beforehand, but yeah, this is going double goose egg here on the site. So just letting you guys know that. So it's been a great night. It's been a long night, but it's time to go ahead and shut this baby down. So we're going to go ahead, hit the outro. I will see you guys tomorrow night for the Barroom Podcast. It should be pretty hectic. Until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday, next Monday night, wherever the case may be. Good night. Goodbye. Get out of here. Go home. It's over. Bye.
Are you guys still doing it?